Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Test Those Breasts podcast. I am your host, Jamie Vaughn. I'm a retired teacher of 20 years and a breast cancer thriver turned staunch, unapologetic, loud supporter and advocate for others, bringing education and awareness through a myriad of medical experts, therapists, caregivers, and other survivors. A breast cancer diagnosis is incredibly overwhelming with the mounds of information out there, especially on Dr. Google. I get it. I'm not a doctor, and I know how important it is to uncover accurate information, which is my ongoing mission through my nonprofit. The podcast includes personal stories and opinions from breast cancer survivors and professional physicians, providing the most up-to-date information at the time of recording. Evidence, research, and practices are always changing, so please check the date of the recording and always refer to your medical professionals for the most up-to-date information. I hope you find this podcast a source of inspiration and support from my guests. Their contact information is in the show notes, so please feel free to reach out to them. We have an enormous breast cancer community ready to support you in so many ways. Now let's listen to the next episode of Test Those Breasts. Well, hello, friends. Welcome back to this episode of Test Those Breasts. I am your host, Jamie Vaughn, and today I am super honored to have my guest, Dr. Margaret Bredehoft, on my show. She goes by Dr. B. Dr. B is a senior healthcare executive with over 25 years of experience delivering strategic corporate, community, and population health solutions. She holds a Doctor of Public Health in Preventative Care from Loma Linda University and has spent her career leading system-level initiatives across health systems, corporate wellness, and public service. As Orange County's Public Health Director, she led the COVID-19 vaccination effort for a 3.2 million population, secured a highly competitive CDC infrastructure grant, championed health equity initiatives, and drove programs spanning maternal and child health, communicable disease, environmental health, and community nursing services. Her career has always been driven by one pursuit: expanding access, equity, and innovation in healthcare for the people most underserved by existing systems. Today, as Chief Development Officer of TrueArc Health, she channels that mission into Gnosis for Her, a first of its kind mobile breast imaging center in Southern California, offering dedicated breast CT, a compression-free, painless alternative to traditional mammography. Gnosis for Her was designed for women with dense breast tissue, implants, complex anatomy, or anyone who has put off imaging due to fear or painful experience with traditional mammography. Dr. B, welcome.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Thanks, Jamie. That
You
was
were
a
so
mouthful.
impressive.
Well, I think the only thing impressive is I think I have a passion, a passion to help women and just advance women's health in an innovative way. That's the passion.
Yeah, you do absolutely have passion, but you have so much experience and skill behind that, which is super impressive. And I'm just so happy that we connected and that you reached out to me because you wanted to share what you have. And we've had a couple of conversations for our
Mhm.
pre-interview, so I feel like I know you a lot better now. And I'm just happy that we can bring this information and your story and everything to my audience. I'd like to start out with, before we talk about the technology part, can you share a little bit about your background and what actually led you to focus on
Mhm.
improving breast imaging?
Absolutely. And, I think you said a mouthful, but I think at the core of it is I'm just passionate about innovation and how do we use innovation to drive better healthcare, drive better outcomes. And, in my years of experience in the different sectors, whether it's private, nonprofit, or public, I think that key is access to better care and better experience. So if we can bring better experience to women, if we can bring better access to them, we're going to improve their care and their outcome for early detection, prevention, all the above. And so that's the core of why Gnosis for Her just spoke so closely to my heart. Not to mention that I fell into that category of women who, delayed getting my mammogram done because I feared just the discomfort of it. I always told myself I was too busy. I told
Right.
myself it wouldn't happen to me because I'm relatively healthy.
Yeah.
Until I reached that special age where you realize, oh my gosh, everybody else around me is, getting sick. We're getting older. We feel it in our joints. And, I had some family members and friends that were diagnosed with breast cancer at a very early age. So when Gnosis for Her and the technology of dedicated breast CT came to me, it just felt so right. It felt so right. And the goal here is to compress the timeline to care and not our breast.
I love that. And that is just right up my alley. As you know, with Test Those Breasts, it's all about early detection. The sooner we find it, the easier, or it's never easy, but the earlier you find it, it is going to be easier to get through the treatments and actually live. And so this speaks to my heart. I am all about mammograms and screenings and the supplemental screenings, making sure that people have access. And you and I both know that not all women, or men for that matter, I've spoken to several men recently where they're denied a lot of things. So we just know that there are a lot of barriers that just keep people from being able to actually get extra screening if they have dense breast tissue, or they are, whether their culture or their, whatever the circumstances are, they're not going in to get these mammograms. And so being able to bring the technology like you are going to be speaking about to market and make it easier for people is just, you know that's right, that speaks to me.
Awesome.
So so most women are familiar with mammograms, but many people don't realize there are limitations. What are some of the biggest challenges with traditional breast imaging, especially for women with dense breast tissue?
So while mammograms are still considered the standard practice, and we encourage that 100%, I think that for us, why dedicated breast CT is so powerful is that it really helps fill those diagnostic gaps where, to your point about women with dense breasts, women with implants, for instance, or women who have pain during a traditional mammogram, or who've just put off mammography for whatever reasons, cultural, religious, all those reasons. We wanted to be able to bring an alternative pathway for them to stay, up to date with their breast health. So, why dedicated breast CT is making such an impact is because it kind of solves all those barriers to getting healthcare, to getting their breast imaging done. It is non compression, so there's no squeezing, and it gives you a true 3D image of your breasts. So you can have a full, what they call isotropic 3D view, and, we always say breast cancer has nowhere to hide because of this. It really helps solve some of the limitations that you see in traditional mammogram with overlapping tissues.
Well, and on your website, you showed me a video of what that looks like. And it's pretty impressive, actually. And it looks comfortable. It looks easy. And you can tell that, I mean, breast cancer can't hide on there. So that's really amazing. So can you walk us through the typical imaging pathway? For example, someone starts with a mammogram. What usually happens next if something needs further evaluation?
Yes. So normally you go in for your typical screening mammogram. And if there's any indication or something that needs to be further evaluated, the radiologist would recommend that, upon reading. And a few things may happen. It may not happen always in this order, but they may call you back for additional views. So traditional screening mammograms are only 2 views. They may ask to have 3 to 4 views addition before they think about other modalities like ultrasound. And so once you pass the screening phase, then they consider you a diagnostic candidate. So
Okay.
they'll look at things like contrast, with mammogram, with mammography or ultrasound, or sometimes, there's a recommendation for MRI. So it just really depends on the complexity of what the radiologists are seeing and what they're trying to overcome. They'll recommend those additional modalities.
It's really
And
interesting because I had never heard of contrast with mammograms until shortly before around our conversation, but I had just heard it in a breast health class that I'd been teaching. I'd never even heard that was a thing.
yeah, so when you are able to do contrast, it illuminates and it helps you see the difference
Mhm.
between artifact tissues or scarring tissues versus true calcification and tumors. And
Interesting.
once you get to that point, and they're pretty sure that there is a potential malignancy, a biopsy is normally a confirmatory diagnosis for breast cancer.
Okay. Interesting. So I want to go back to this phrase that you talked about, breast cancer has nowhere to hide. What does that mean when we're talking about dedicated breast CT?
Well, just like we spoke before, and I think it's probably better if you can also look on our website so that you can see the difference. Dedicated breast CT, it goes full 360. So the patient, lies, face down, and it's one breast at a time that's fit into the aperture, which is an opening. And
Okay.
then, once she's there, there's a CT scan underneath, the bed that rotates 360. So what it allows is not only a true 360, but it goes all the way up to your chest wall and your
Okay.
axillary and your pecs. So it goes really deep, whereas traditional 3D, when you have compression, you only get the breast tissue. You're lucky if you may have a sliver of your chest wall, but this gives a lot of view. And as we know now that cancer can also exist in those adjacent areas to the breast tissue.
Yeah. I really love that it gets in kind of looking at your lymph nodes and all over the
Mhm.
place. That makes a lot of sense. How long does it take?
It normally takes 10 seconds with each breast. So you do
Wow.
one breast at a time, and the device goes 360, 10 seconds at a time. And it's
Wow.
really easy. Yeah, really easy. I did this. I'm excited to do mine again. Can you believe that? And that's the goal, right? How do we make it so comfortable and the experience so pleasant that it draws women to care and not, you know, make a barrier for care because of the experience. So 10 seconds each side, no manipulation. You just lay there, you hold your breath for about 7 seconds, and that's it.
And I mean, I feel like I was just going to ask you what do people feel, and really nothing. Right? I mean, do they
Well, I
feel
mean,
anything?
no, they feel nothing on their breasts because it's just, gravity does all the work. There's no handling or manipulation. And that's another thing with mammograms and the way DBT is right now is it is very reliant on the skill set of the technician, right? And so if the techs, aren't pulling the breast tissue in a way that's taut enough, or the angles aren't right, you're not going to get the best view. And there's a high likelihood of what we call recall. So meaning that the patient will be asked to come back again, to get additional views or to take better images. And to me, that's just unnecessary anxiety that, a patient does not have to face and experience.
Oh, I love that. What about implants? What if a patient has implants?
Oh my gosh. So, I until I did this, I really didn't understand what females with implants had to go through. And I can totally relate as to why they would not want to do traditional mammograms because of what they experience. Women with implants in the traditional mammography, you have to displace the implant. Then you pull the breast tissue, then compress it to get your images. Isn't that horrible? That just sounds
Yeah.
so horrible.
Yeah.
Yes. And with dedicated breast CT, again, there's no handling, no manipulation. It's a dedicated 360, and we can see all around the implants because of the reach. So it reaches all the way to the chest wall, to the axillary, and you can see calcifications or tumors growing. even from behind the implants. So that just makes it such a great opportunity for women with implants to have a more, I should say, dignified way to get their breast health evaluated. It's an interesting, you should bring the issue about implants because when we rolled out, I noticed that we had a high volume of patients with implants. And, I'm glad that we didn't catch cancer on them, but we were able to help identify cases where they may have leakage
Yeah.
or, it's a great diagnostic tool for implant evaluation. So I'd rather be telling them, hey, you might want to go see your breast surgeon, to reevaluate your implants. I rather give that news than telling them that they may have a suspected, tumor.
Right.
So
So it's like the best of both worlds, right? Now
exactly.
gnosis for her, obviously indicates females, right? But this would be really good for men.
Absolutely. I heard you say that at the beginning of the podcast, and I realized, yeah, maybe we should just call it something else. But men have breast cancer too.
They
So
do.
this is a great way, and they have their muscle structures are a little bit different. So I'm sure if they had to do compressions, it would be probably 10 times more painful than
Well,
women.
yeah, and just difficult. They don't have as much breast as females do, and so this would be just right up their alley for sure. Yeah. So maybe a addition or yeah, we'll have to think about that. Gnosis for her and him. Him and her. Okay, so for someone listening right now, if they're interested in this type of imaging, how can they access it? Because this is something that you and I talked about before. Like, you're not,
Mhm.
Gnosis isn't everywhere. So, where is it located? How
Yes.
can people actually get access to this? Does insurance cover it? Tell us all the things.
Because it is innovation, and with innovation, it still needs to be stabilized within, the industry, So, Gnosis for Her, you can get us in Southern California. We're located in Orange County, and you can visit our website to find where our mobile care unit is servicing throughout the coming months. But we actually belong to a group of Coning Vera owners. So Coning Vera is the device for the dedicated breast CT. If you go on to coninghealth.com, you're able to actually find other owners of this particular innovation and ways to do dedicated breast CT. So everyone utilizes it a little bit differently. I think for us, Jamie, because of my public health background, we're really wanting to create better access in the community. When we actually get the screening indication, that's going to happen pretty eminently in 2026. Our plan is to increase our fleet in mobile care units as well as having stationary retail centers that we can actually do the entire diagnostic journey for the patients from early detection to confirming tumors. So to do the entire process and pathway.
So where is it now? Where can people locate it now?
Now we're currently located in Main Place, Santa Ana, Orange County. So that's our first mobile care unit. But, we're hoping to, by the end of this year, just expand our reach. And that was why we decided to do mobile, so that we can actually go where the need is. So I feel like once we exhaust the need here, we're able to travel into other locations. Previously, we were also serving patients in the Huntington Beach area.
Okay.
So we're going to make our rounds through all the communities and neighborhoods of Orange County and also serve those adjacent counties like LA, in the Inland Empire, as well as San Diego
And Reno, Nevada.
and Reno, Nevada. Yes.
We'll bring it to the breast center. We'll just kind of bring it over into our community. I would love that. So, what excites you most about the future for breast imaging and early detection?
What excites me is the ability to just compress that timeline from early detection to treatment for women and do it in a way that's compassionate, that's dignified and gives clarity to patients. and being able to scale that once we get the screening indication. That's
Yeah.
what really excites me, because can you imagine how many women we can actually save their lives?
Yeah.
And not only that, but give them better quality of life. With breast CT, I failed to mention this, but you can actually detect tumors as small as 2 millimeters, and
Uh-huh.
calcification as small as 200 microns. And calcifications are pre-indicators to potential like tumors and cancers. So it is so crucial. If we can detect that at an early stage, a woman can have a wonderful quality of life. She has so many options on how she can approach her treatment. So that's the goal. That's where we're wildly excited about. This is going to be a movement. It's not about if, Jamie, it's about when.
I love
So
it.
as soon as we get that screening indication, we're going to go out there. You'll see hundreds of fleets. So yes, we'll probably be in Nevada soon.
I love that. And I mean, as I was talking about earlier, my nonprofit is all about early detection, teaching breast health classes through the Know Your Lemons curriculum, where I'm teaching the 12 signs of breast cancer
Mhm.
and early detection. There is a free download with Know Your Lemons, and so I am like. And really, I like to teach all people, of course, but I'm really focusing on going in and teaching the younger folks so that they have an understanding that it's not just an old lady disease. I mean, I was
Right.
54 when I was diagnosed and I knew a lot about breast cancer, but I realized very quickly that I didn't know a lot about breast cancer. And I wish I would have known so many other things back when I was in my 20s and 30s. And that's what I aim to do. And I want to be able to make sure that younger folks too can advocate for themselves and to be able to get the screenings that they need even though they're under
Hmm.
40. And so being able to give them help them get access to your technology. And I see such good stuff coming out of this, definitely.
Jamie, I think you brought up a really good point. A couple years ago, the U.S. Preventive Task Force brought the age for starting your annual screenings to 40 years.
Mhm.
It was 50 before, and then now it's 40 years. People that I know, my friends and my family, who's gotten breast cancer at the age of 38 and in their early 40s. So what's alarming about breast cancer isn't necessarily the incidence that we're seeing, but it's how early we're seeing it. And especially in women with dense breasts, predominantly a lot in the Asian communities, those early opportunities are being missed. They're being missed. And
Yep.
so, a lot of patients are just reluctant to go get even a mammogram because they know it's going to result in subsequent and additional workups, which they were not willing to either pay out of pocket or just go through because there's so much anxiety,
Yeah.
and so here you have the opportunity just to bypass that and get clear images from the get-go. So you save all that time of anxiety and worry, and you go straight to a more definitive diagnostic.
I love that so much. And I mean, you say 38 and in their 40s. I've interviewed so many people who got it when they were in their late 20s, early 30s, pregnant. And it's like, what is
Yes.
happening? What is happening here? How is this happening? And I just want people to be so much more aware of what's happening with their body. I actually had somebody reach out to me recently and said, "Hey, I have this rash on my breast and it's not going away. I thought she says because of your post about the 12 signs of breast cancer, I'm going to my dermatologist to get it checked out." I'm like, "Thank you," because I mean, first stop dermatologist, fine, but then your second stop, definitely, if they can't figure out what it is, make sure that you're going to get your breast checked, get a mammogram or an ultrasound or CT. And I just feel like this knowledge that we're putting out there and the technology that you're putting out there is just going to, bolster our efforts. And I love the fact that we can all partner with each other, because when we all come together and we are sharing each other's, resources, and with this same effort of making sure that early detection is what happens, this is where we all win. So thank you for being out there. I have a lot of good information that is going to go in the show notes. I have all of your contact information. You're all over the place. You got a website, you have Facebook, Twitter, X, YouTube, LinkedIn, Pinterest.
Yes.
You've got it all covered. Well, what about TikTok? my
I
my
think
son.
that will probably be, yeah, it'll probably be our next. I'll probably need to learn a little bit more from you, Jamie, but I mean, this is why we sought after your podcast because of your name is just so catchy. Test those breasts. Like, we're like, oh my gosh, that needs to be our partner
Yeah.
because that's what we're trying to advocate. And the rich resources that you're bringing to women is going to be crucial, for their decision making and their care journey. So I really appreciate, you taking the time to get to know us more. And I look forward to how we can collaborate in the future.
Yeah, I am absolutely all for that. My husband made up that name. I was trying to come up with a podcast name. I'd had a podcast before I had breast cancer, and I had to kind of switch gears after that. And we were sitting in the hot tub, and he's like, "How about test those breasts?" And I'm like, "Well, that just says it all right there. You don't really have to say anything. I mean, how can you misunderstand that, right?" Okay,
Yeah.
so we have a lot of resources as well from coninghealth.com, some PDFs, and I actually, all of this stuff will go on my website in the appropriate category. I have someone who is categorizing all of my resources as we speak, so that's going to be easy to find. So I just appreciate your efforts, your knowledge, and your passion, and for reaching out and wanting to get this out to anyone who will be listening. So is there anything that you would like to say before we wrap up today?
Yeah, I really would love to. We just had in March Women's History Month. And I want to leave with this. What really made me passionate about Gnosis for Her and dedicated breast CT was, our CEO, Matt Collins, his wife had a conversation with me and she said, Dr. B, why is it that when it comes to women's health, it's decades? Like we've been treated by the same instruments, machines, garden hose, for over 30, 40 years. And if a man were put in the same position and had to be, pulled and stretched and squeezed and all that, someone would invent something right away. So
I
when the
would think so.
opportunity came, right, when the opportunity came for a non-compressive way, a non-compression way that brings dignity to women and encourages them to get their annual breast, imaging done, then it was definitely a hell yes. This is what we need to do. We need to bring innovation. We need to give women more options and more choices, in their care journey, giving them better quality of life and options in treatment paths and care journeys. So I just wanted to leave with that. So I hope that, everybody on this podcast joins both you and I to educate women to be champions of their health and help us lead innovation to advance women's health.
Yeah, I would love to have a partnership. I do have a dedicated page for partners and things like that. I would love to be able to feature that on the website. Oh, but also, I've been talking to men recently who, even though they know that women's health is very difficult to advance, and I mean, I just talked to a gal who works with policy because of her own lived experience. She said that even mentioning the word breast is discouraged when talking about breast cancer and
Yeah.
policy. Like, how do you talk about breast cancer policy without being able to say the word breast in front of a bunch of men? And it's just like this, it's like a total upside down world. But I mean, I really am irritated that men who get breast cancer have a difficult time getting the
Hmm.
support that they need. So I'm hoping that this will be very helpful for them. But I mean, even being able to get into support groups for men is just really difficult. So I've been really, you know, pulling them into the fold of what we talk about here, especially with early detection. So, yeah, really great information. I'm just super thrilled that we got to get together today. And I'm excited to put this episode out because it's important. And I love the fact that there is more technology. And I can't wait until it comes to Nevada. I will do
Okay.
that.
Okay. We'll have to stick together to do that. I have a feeling it will. It's not an if, it's a when.
All right. Well, I'm really glad. All right. Well, Dr. B, it was really, really great talking with you today. And I know we will be in touch. And if you have anything else to say,
Thank you, Jamie, for all the work and advocacy that you're doing. Thank you so
yeah,
much.
thank you too. All right. And to my audience, thank you again for joining me on this episode of Test Those Breasts. And we will see you on the next episode. Bye for now.
Bye.
Friends, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Test Those Breasts. I hope you got some great, much needed information that will help you with your journey. As always, I am open to guests to add value to my show, and I'm also open to being a guest on other podcasts where I can add value. So please reach out if you'd like to collaborate. My contact information is in the show notes. And as a reminder, rating, reviewing, and sharing this podcast will truly help build a bigger audience all over the world. I thank you for your efforts. I look forward to sharing my next episode of Test Those Breasts.